My 22 female boyfriend, 29 male, let his best friend's wife alter a traditional Indian dish. I spent 3 days preparing, then they scold me for speaking up. I met my boyfriend 2 years ago. I was 20, working part-time while finishing up my undergrad, and he was a regular customer at the cafe where I worked. He always came in around the same time, ordered the same black coffee, and gave a small smile that slowly became something more familiar. At first, it was small talk, comments about the weather, mutual complaints about early mornings, but our conversations started lasting longer, even if only by a minute or two. I still remember the first time he waited for my shift to end. I was heading out the back, and he asked if I wanted to grab a drink. That night felt easy and natural, like I didn't have to try too hard. One drink turned into three, which turned into weekend plans, and before I really knew what was happening, I was in a relationship. It was the first time I felt myself falling not just in love, but into someone's life. He was older, only 6 years, but it felt like more. He had a full-time job, a solid group of friends who had known each other for over a decade, and a sort of stability I hadn't yet figured out. I was still finding my way. I hadn't graduated yet. My world was still shaped by assignments and part-time shifts and dreams I hadn't even dared to say out loud. The age gap didn't cause tension between us, but I definitely felt it in other ways. His friends, many of whom were married or in long-term relationships, were kind but distant. Never rude, but I often felt like I was being humored. I was the young girlfriend. I'd offer to bring something to a gathering, and they'd brush it off with polite smiles. It was like being included in name but not in substance. So when Ellie, who's married to one of his closest friends, Dave, invited me to bring dessert to a dinner party, I was excited. Ellie hosts these dinners regularly. She's an amazing cook, and these gatherings are important to the group. Being asked to contribute felt like a small step toward belonging. I wanted to make something special, something meaningful. I decided to prepare a Bengali sweet from home, one I loved growing up. I'm Indian, and though I'm far from home for school, food has always been my connection to my culture. It grounds me. It brings me back to my mother's kitchen, to festivals, to late nights stirring milk and sugar until it thickens just right. I called my mom and spent over an hour on FaceTime with her, going over every step. I practiced the dish once beforehand and had my friends taste it. Even my boyfriend tried it the night before and said it was delicious. I was proud of it, not just because it tasted good, but because of what it represented. It was a piece of me. At the dinner, I brought the dish and placed it in the kitchen. Everything seemed fine. We sat, chatted, laughed. When dessert was served, and my boyfriend proudly said I had made it, I smiled. And then I took a bite. My heart sank. Something was wrong. It tasted like cinnamon. Strong, overpowering cinnamon. That spice doesn't belong in that dish. It completely changed the flavor. My face must have shifted because my boyfriend leaned in and asked what was wrong. He pulled me aside. That's when he told me Ellie had added cinnamon because she thought it looked too white. She wanted to give it some color. He laughed when he said it, like it was quirky, like it wasn't a big deal. But to me, it was a big deal. All the effort I put in, calling my mom, practicing, making something from my culture with intention and care, had been altered without my knowledge. Not because it was spoiled, not because it was bad, but because she thought it didn't look right. Like it needed fixing. Like my food, and by extension me, didn't quite measure up. I kept it together during the rest of the evening. Smiled, nodded, made conversation. But in the car ride home, I cried quietly. My boyfriend told me I was overreacting, that I should drop it, that his friends already saw me as emotional, and making a scene would have made things worse. That hurt more than the cinnamon. Because he knew what this dish meant to me. He saw how excited I was, how hard I worked to get it right. He tasted it and told me how good it was. And when someone changed it, disrespected it, he said nothing.
He didn't protect me.
He texted the next morning to say he was sorry. Said seeing me cry made him feel awful. That he should have said something. And while I appreciate that he acknowledged my pain, it doesn't erase what happened. Because the issue isn't just cinnamon. It's the fact that someone took something from my culture and changed it because they didn't understand it. Because they didn't bother to ask. It's the fact that I wasn't seen as someone who deserved respect or consultation. That my dish, and by extension my identity, was treated as decoration. And what hurts the most is that he let it happen. I've been trying so hard to feel like I belong. I've been patient,
Kind.
open. I've listened to stories I didn't relate to, laughed at jokes I didn't fully understand, brought dishes and gifts and pieces of myself. And when I finally felt like I was being included, it turned out I was just being managed. I don't want to be the young girlfriend anymore. I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be respected. After everything that happened with the dessert, I was left feeling exposed, small, and honestly, deeply hurt. But I didn't end things. I didn't scream. I didn't demand ultimatums. I just needed space to think. And then he beat me to it. He told me he needed some space from the relationship. And you know what? That's fine.
People need space.
But it was hard not to feel like I was being treated like a problem instead of someone who had been hurt. I wasn't the one who changed someone else's food without asking. I wasn't the one who stood silently while it happened. I wasn't the one laughing it off like it was quirky. But still, I began doubting myself. I never asked the internet whether I should leave him. I never asked for thousands of people to dissect my relationship. I asked one question. Was I overreacting for crying? That's it. But people told me it was racially charged. That Ellie wanted control. That my boyfriend was spineless. That this wasn't just about food. And slowly, I started to feel like I was going crazy. So when my boyfriend called and said he wanted to talk, I said okay. I brought my best friend with me, mostly for emotional backup. I had no idea what to expect. But when we arrived at his place, I was thrown. Dave and Ellie were there. Ellie was already crying. Dave looked like he was ready to tear into me. And my boyfriend? He couldn't even look at me. He told me to sit down, and I did, confused and already feeling like something was wrong. Dave launched into it immediately, accusing me of humiliating them. He said most of the people who attended the dinner party would recognize who I was talking about, and that my post had shamed Ellie and my boyfriend. The way he talked to me, it wasn't like someone addressing an equal. It felt like I was being scolded by disappointed parents, with Ellie playing the crying victim and my boyfriend sitting there like the older sibling, just shaking his head, not saying anything, not defending me. And I just sat there, looking at him, waiting for him to step in, to say, hey, maybe this isn't the way we should be handling this. But he didn't. I finally turned to Ellie. I asked her plainly, why would you alter my dish? Why did you tell me to bring an Indian dessert and then change it without asking me? She looked at me, through tears, and said she thought Indian food was supposed to be brown.
Brown.
That was her justification. This woman grew up in the UK. She has more Indian friends than I do. She lives in one of the most multicultural places in the world. And her takeaway in 2025 is that Indian food equals brown. As if my culture is a paint swatch, not a spectrum of flavor and history. I felt defeated. Like I'd been so stupid to think this was ever about dessert. It wasn't.
It was about respect.
And the lack of it. And still, my boyfriend didn't say anything. So I looked at him, and I asked what had been weighing on me since that night. You knew how important this was to me.
You saw how long I worked on it.
You tasted it. You watched me call my mom in practice and stress over getting it just right. You knew what it meant. So why? Why did you let her alter it? Why didn't you say anything? And his answer? I didn't think the sweet was a big deal.
Just like that.
A shrug. As if everything I put into that dish, my time, my effort, my culture, meant nothing. So I told him, I would never let one of my friends do that to you. If you had spent 3 days learning how to make something meaningful to you, and someone altered it behind your back, I would have stood up for you. I would have asked questions. I would have said something, because I care how you're treated. And the worst part is, I don't think he would do the same for me. The thing is, this isn't about the dish anymore. It's about the fact that when it mattered, I was alone. I was the outsider.
The guest.
The one people smiled at but never really invited in. And when I finally asked to be seen, not even loudly, just by making something that mattered to me, it got dismissed as too white and changed to meet someone else's idea of what Indian food is supposed to be. And then I was scolded for feeling hurt. I didn't shout at Ellie. I didn't post names. I didn't ask for people to choose sides.
All I did was cry.
And yet somehow, in this whole thing, I became the problem. I walked out of that house with my best friend, silent. I felt hollow. Not because I was embarrassed by the post. Not because of the confrontation. But because I realized something. Maybe I wasn't really being included at all. Maybe I was just being tolerated. Ellie started crying.
Of course she did.
She said she wasn't being racist, that she didn't know how much effort I'd put into the dish, and that now she couldn't host dinners anymore because she was too ashamed. As if the worst thing that had happened here was her social calendar taking a hit. I was stunned.
I didn't yell.
I didn't accuse. I didn't name names. I used fake names in my post, on purpose, because I didn't want to cause drama. So, unless she and Dave went around telling people the post was about her, how would anyone know? If someone recognized themselves, maybe they should be asking why. But the part that really got me? My boyfriend, no, ex-boyfriend, I guess, looked at me, finally, and said, "I didn't expect this from you." Like I had betrayed him. And I didn't even get a moment to respond because my best friend, bless his petty soul, snapped. "Yeah? Well, I didn't expect you to be such a **ing spineless jellyfish, but here we are. Asterisk." Ellie gasped like she'd been slapped. Dave started to say something, and my ex threw up his hands and muttered that he needed space, again, like he was the victim of some cosmic injustice. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the last time and said, "Get lost." And I meant it. I left. I didn't wait to see what came next. I didn't want to hear another second of excuses or watch him sit quietly while his friends made me out to be the villain. I didn't want to hear how I was too sensitive or that Ellie meant well. I just left. And of course, because life has a sense of humor, I tripped at the metro station.
Hard.
Some guy tried to help me up and I waved him off with tears in my eyes, clutching my knee like it was my last shred of dignity. By the time I got to my best friend's place, I was scraped, emotionally wrecked, and possibly developing a lifelong grudge against cinnamon. Now I'm on my best friend's couch with an ice pack on my leg, a peach schnapps in hand, courtesy of his very sweet, very quiet boyfriend, and a growing pile of tissues next to me like a sad snowdrift. My best friend is hovering like I'm made of glass. Every time I try to stand up, he pushes me back down like I might shatter. I even heard him whispering, well, loudly whispering in the kitchen with his older brother. Something about threatening my ex over Instagram DMs. I don't know whether to laugh or cry harder. Maybe both. And you know what? I hate that it came to this. I've always been the mom friend. I'm the one who checks if everyone's eaten, who brings Band-Aids in her purse, who remembers birthdays and makes tea when someone's having a bad day. I've taken care of these people for years, made sure they were okay. I never thought I'd be the one on the couch, clutching a schnapps bottle like a stress ball while people whispered about revenge in the other room. It's humbling.
And humiliating.
But mostly it just hurts. I keep thinking back to that moment, sitting on my ex's couch, Dave lecturing me like I was some irresponsible child, Ellie crying about not being able to host dinner parties, and my boyfriend, my partner, not once standing up for me. Not once saying, hey, she's allowed to be hurt. She's allowed to feel disrespected. Instead, he sat there, eyes down, silent. And that silence screamed louder than anything else. Because if his friends come first when they're the ones who hurt me, where would I have been if I decided to marry this man? How many more dinners would I have had to smile through? How many more little cultural cuts would I have had to ignore because she meant well? I keep replaying it all. Not just the dinner party. Not just the cinnamon. But the way I was made to feel small. The way I tried so hard to be included, to belong. And the way I was left alone the moment I spoke up. I didn't ask to be fought over. I didn't expect grand gestures. But I expected something. A glance. A hand on my shoulder. A quiet, hey, this isn't okay. Instead, I got a lecture. I got tears that weren't mine. I got shamed for a post where I didn't name a single person. And now I'm sitting here, with my scraped knee and my broken heart, wondering what the hell just happened to my relationship. But if this is how it ends, maybe it's for the best. Because the truth is, I was in love with someone who couldn't even look at me while I was being torn apart for expressing hurt. I was in love with someone who thought space was an answer instead of a way out. And while I may be the one crying now, I know this much. I won't keep shrinking myself to fit into someone else's life. I won't keep apologizing for having feelings. And I sure as hell won't let anyone treat my culture like a garnish again. Let Ellie cry about dinner parties. Let Dave puff his chest. Let my ex figure out what he's lost when the silence finally gets loud enough to hear. 2 weeks later. It feels like 2 years. Time has a weird way of stretching out when you're emotionally exhausted. I've had days blur into nights, nights blur into tissues and old playlists, and too many cups of tea I didn't finish.
So,
Updates. My ex called a few times last week. I wouldn't have even known if my phone hadn't buzzed with some random number, which I later found out was him calling from someone else's device. I had blocked him a couple of days after the breakup because I needed peace, not pity. He also tried calling my friends. None of them picked up. Loyalty, it turns out, is still alive in some corners of the world. I didn't want things to spiral like they did. I know some people online assumed I was trying to stir drama or expose people, but the truth is, I never wanted to air my dirty laundry. I didn't want my issues to be part of some social media verdict. I just wanted advice. Some clarity. I wanted to know if I was overreacting or if crying over something that felt disrespectful and humiliating was normal. And honestly, I didn't want my friends to hate him. I really didn't. At the time, I was still trying to find a way to protect him from their disappointment, even as I was drowning in mine. But thankfully, the trash took itself out. I still don't know if Ellie's behavior was racially motivated or if she just didn't like me. I've thought about it so much that I've stopped caring. That's not to say it didn't hurt. It did. A lot.
But now?
I'm at the point where I just don't want to share space with anyone who could hurt me and then demand I sit down and be scolded for reacting to it. I don't want a man who lets his friends humiliate me and acts like I've embarrassed him in the process. I want someone who stands up for me, even when it's uncomfortable. I deserve to be someone's first choice, not their default, not someone to be defended in hindsight after damage control. Anyway, apparently, he came by my best friend's flat. I wasn't there, I don't live there, and thankfully no one told me until after he left. From what my bestie's boyfriend told me, he looked, I don't know, humbled? Quiet. Not like himself. He said he was sorry. He said he now understood that I didn't deserve to be treated like that. That when we broke up, he thought I was making a big deal out of nothing. But then a few of his friends apparently stepped up. They told Ellie what she did was not okay. One of them even told my ex he had been a shit boyfriend. Go figure. Turns out he had some decent friends after all. Just not the ones I met at that table. Still, his apology didn't fix anything. He didn't ask to get back together, which I appreciated actually. He just said he didn't want there to be more hurt between us. But you know what? I'm done. I decided not to respond. Not to reach out. Not to reopen any part of that door. Because the truth is, if it takes your friends explaining to you that your girlfriend was mistreated after the breakup, you're not someone I want to be building a future with. Since then, things have been weird. Like I'm living in a different version of my life. I feel slow, lethargic, a bit hollowed out. My mom gave me a full lecture about crying over idiot men, which I knew was coming, but still hit like a ton of bricks. She's not wrong. But she also made me tea later, and rubbed my back the way she did when I was a kid with a fever, and I cried in her arms like I was 10 again. Most nights, I still cry. Quietly. Not because I want him back, but because I'm grieving what I thought I had. What I thought we were. The future I pictured, the person I believed in. Turns out, I was in love with someone who never really showed up for me when it mattered. And in the middle of all this mess, my bestie's elder brother, affectionately nicknamed Dada, has taken it upon himself to play my personal crisis manager. He's been insisting that I move in with them for a while, because apparently I'm not eating well enough to survive a light breeze. My dad agrees. He likes my bestie's family.
Trust them.
I do too. I think I might say yes, just for a while. Just to breathe somewhere safe. Work? Studies? Let's not talk about it. I'm trying. That's all I can do right now. As for Ellie and Dave, radio silence. I haven't heard a word from them, and I hope it stays that way. I want no updates. No apologies. No drama. If they ever pop up again, it'll be too soon. There was one person, though, someone who asked me bluntly if I really left my boyfriend over a dessert. I told her everything. Her face went white, like she'd just bitten into a raw lemon. I don't know what she told my ex after that, but a day later, he apologized. So maybe she told him the truth in a way he couldn't ignore. Still, I'm so done with that whole group's nonsense. And me? I'm just trying to find my footing again. I don't feel strong. Not yet. But I'm standing, which is more than I could say 2 weeks ago. And somewhere, beneath all the exhaustion, there's this small, stubborn flicker inside me. The part of me that knows I deserve better. The part that wants to learn to cook again, without flinching at the memory. The part that believes love shouldn't feel like a courtroom with me in the defendant's seat. So I'll keep showing up for myself. One quiet moment at a time. With or without schnapps this time. But definitely without cinnamon. I went to therapy. It didn't go how I thought it would. I didn't walk out with a magic sense of clarity. I didn't cry some deep, healing sob that made everything feel better. I just sat there, numb, and felt worse after. It was like poking a bruise I'd been trying to ignore. I know it takes time. Everyone says it does. That it works slowly, quietly, like stitches dissolving in your skin. But in that first session, I just felt raw.
Exposed.
And a little ashamed that I didn't walk away feeling better. Still, I knew I had to go back. Because the truth was, I'd never felt so emotionally low in my life. Not after bad grades. Not after losing friendships. Not even after leaving home for university. This was different. This was grief, not just over a relationship, but over a version of myself I thought was stronger, more discerning. I had trusted someone who didn't stand up for me, and worse, I let myself believe it was my fault for reacting. So, yeah, therapy didn't fix me instantly. But I went again, and then again. And somewhere in between the guilt, the sadness, and the anger, I began to see what I had been carrying long before the breakup even happened. I decided I was done dating. Officially. For the foreseeable future. Not in a dramatic, I'll never love again kind of way, but in a quiet, exhausted sort of way. Like setting something down after carrying it for too long. I needed time for me. Time to understand what I really wanted, not just in love, but in life. And not just what I wanted from others, but what I expected of myself. In the midst of all that, my best friend and I started planning a trip. It was meant to be a celebratory thing, something to look forward to after our final semester of the master's program. I tried to stay enthusiastic, but I worried, quietly, that I'd ruin it. That I'd bring the mood down with my heaviness and my hollow silences. But my friends, they were incredible. They always are. They made space for me without making me feel like a burden. They cracked jokes, cooked me food, and rolled their eyes lovingly whenever I started apologizing for crying too much. My best friend and his boyfriend kept plying me with peach schnapps whenever I got too quiet, and Dada would hover in the background, giving me disapproving glances like I was about to spiral into alcoholism. He'd mutter things like, "Grief doesn't give you liver immunity," and "You'll die before you get over him if you keep drinking that crap." But then he'd make me tea. So, I forgave him for the lectures. That trip? We haven't gone yet, but just planning it helped. It gave me something bright on the horizon, something untouched by everything that had happened. And now? It's been 7 months. I'm okay. Honestly. Not perfect, not healed like a movie montage, but okay. Steady. I took a break from therapy after a few weeks because I felt overwhelmed. But 2 months later, I went back. And this time, I went with clearer eyes. I started seeing patterns, not just from the breakup, but from before. Childhood stuff. Family stuff. Turns out, having a mother who says, "I told you so" every time you fall flat, even if she means well and loves you deeply, does something strange to your head. It makes you want to preempt disappointment. To perform perfection. To please. Especially the people you love. So I started working on that. Building a spine. Learning that love doesn't have to mean obedience. That having boundaries doesn't mean I'm cold or unkind. That I can say no and still be good. As for my ex, haven't seen him. Haven't heard from him. He stopped coming to the store. A month after our breakup, I quit anyway. That place held too many weird echoes. I didn't want to be haunted by someone who made me feel small. One of the biggest steps I took was drawing a line with mutual acquaintances. I told them if they were going to take his side, defend his actions, or try to stay neutral while minimizing what happened, I was done. Clean break. No discussions. Because I'm young. And I've got time. And I'll meet more people, better people. And I don't want anyone in my life who condones behavior that, whether through ignorance or malice, diminished me. And yeah, I've come to terms with it. What Ellie did was racially charged. Whether it was ignorance or passive aggression, or my ex thinking I was some kind of exotic collectible, doesn't matter anymore. I've made peace with it. Some people are going to be assholes. Some people will hide it behind kindness or smiles. But that's not on me. I haven't heard a single word from Ellie or Dave. No apology, no explanation, no message trying to patch things up. And good riddance for that. I don't want closure. I don't want one last conversation. I want silence. And I've decided to protect that peace. I don't need to know what they think. I don't care anymore. In the time since then, life has quietly, stubbornly kept moving forward. I graduated. I packed my bags and went on a solo trip to Italy, something I never thought I'd do. I wandered through cobbled streets, drank espresso at tiny cafes, and bought a scarf I didn't need from a street vendor who reminded me of my grandfather. I sat by the Arno River in Florence and watched the sky turn pink and thought, I'm okay. I really am. I moved to a new place. My roommate is a friend from grad school. We get along well. She's easy to live with, funny, and doesn't mind my 2 a.m. ramblings when I get overwhelmed. I've started cooking again, too. Indian sweets, mostly on my terms. For me. No compromises. No helpful edits. Work has picked up. It keeps me busy, which helps. My circle is smaller now, but stronger. My best friend and his boyfriend are still going strong. Thank God. Their love gives me hope.
And Dada?
Still thanking the heavens every day that I didn't spiral into some alcohol-fueled mess. He keeps calling me the one that got away from vodka. And me? I smile more. I breathe easier. I still have bad days, but they don't swallow me whole anymore. I've learned that healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it's drinking your tea hot instead of cold for the first time in weeks. Sometimes it's leaving your phone on Do Not Disturb and not feeling guilty. Sometimes it's realizing you can go a whole day without thinking about him. And that's where I'm at now. Still me. Still healing. But finally, at peace.